Carolyn Dube here, and today I'm playing with old jeans. Yes, old jeans that people have outgrown, but I refuse to throw away for some reason because I knew they'd be awesome for something. Well, today's the day I'm actually going to use these things. So what I'm doing is cutting off pieces of fabric, and I don't want the big thickness of any of the seams or that kind of stuff, so I'm cutting those off, and I have to admit I'm kind of looking at those thinking they'd make a really awesome border to something, but that's for another video another time. So I've got them now cut into smaller strips, and the way I did this, and that's watercolor paper that's down there, by the way, that I'm going to be working with. But what I did is just took a larger piece and then cut a couple notches in it and gave it a big old rip. These are very imperfect strips of denim that I'm going to use. And now all I'm going to do is glue these strips down with some gel medium onto my 140-pound weight watercolor paper. And I'm just trying to make this sort of patchworky, fill in the area kind of thing. Oh, I just realized I haven't even told you what I'm doing with these. Whoops. Well, what I'm making is, it's heading into sort of summer picnic season here, and I need some fun little containers that need to hold all the different things that I always seem to need, from the spoons and the forks to all the little bits and bobs around for the picnics and the outdoors. So I decided I wanted to do sort of a red, white, and blue, very Americana themed box that'll hold these. And I realized I have these things called ATBs, or artist trading block things, from Eileen Hull. And I'm going to use that die cut to actually make my box. But I'm going to tweak the box a little bit and use it a little differently than what it was intended for. And usually when I use that die to build the boxes, I'm using something heavy like a mat board that I'm cutting. That gives a lot of strength and stability. Well, what I'm doing now is by using watercolor paper and putting the denim on it, that's where the strength and stability is going to come from. So I'm getting away using a little bit thinner paper or thinner item on here because I'm thickening it up with the fabric. And so I've just about got it all filled in here, and it's got a nice randomy feeling to it. The threads and things that are around, if those bug me later, I'll cut them off. But it's really just about filling in the holes and getting things to be about the same thickness throughout. I mean, obviously, it's not like I've measured anything. There wasn't any engineering involved here. It's just glue and go. And before I run it through the die cutting machine, what I'm going to do is paint this side red to go with that denim and red, white, and blue kind of look. I will tell you that between the gel medium on the other side and the paint on this side, this paper is wet, and it does need to be completely dry before I put it through the die cutter if I want clean, crisp lines with it. So when you're done, let it dry. So I've already got this cut, but I'll show you how I did it if you're not familiar with the Sizzix dies. This is one of Eileen Hull's block cube ones, and it's got a space in there where if you want, you can put in a mover and shaper. You don't have to, it's optional. But what it allows me to do is cut out a shape there when I run my paper, fabric, mat board, whatever it is, through it. In this case, it's going to be my denim covered watercolor paper. That way I could get a cool window thing happening there. And so I put the butterfly in there and I ran it through. And boy, that scrap there, man, that scrap just, that's got to be used in something. That's just a really awesome scrap. Here is what it looks like when it's cut out. So I've got the butterfly there, and I've got the two pieces that I'd fold together to make my cube. Well, my plan was to just take it out and pop it out and flip it over, and then it would perfectly fit in there, but it would be the red from the inside, so it'd add a little punch of color and that kind of thing. But it turns out this butterfly is absolutely not perfectly symmetrical, which gives it an awesome character, but it made it hard to do what I wanted. But never fear, there's a way around anything. All I did was run another piece through the machine, but doing it backwards so that I've got one that I can just pop in there. And now I have a second scrap that will be an awful lot of fun to put in an art journal or something like that. Well, now what it's time to do is actually put my box together. Really easy to fold along the fold lines, the score lines that were made by running it through the die, because I used a relatively thin piece of paper. It was watercolor paper compared to the heavier mat board that I usually use. The thing that's going to give this strength and stability is the fact that the fabric, it did not cut through where the fold lines are, so that's what's really holding this together, is the fabric portion of it. So I've got the fold lines in there, and my butterfly keeps popping out, misbehaving. Ugh, butterflies are just so hard to get to behave some days. So what I'm going to do is just put together a test run to see how the box fits together, to make sure I've got things where they need to be, and that makes it easy for me to know where to glue. So I'm going to need to glue those two pieces together. I'm going to use some very stinky, I think it's 3-in-1 glue from somebody, but it's a very heavy duty glue. So I'm going to put it down there and I'm going to line it up as closely as I line anything up, which means I'm going to eyeball it. And I'm going to push that in, make sure they're solidly together. And notice how easily it still wiggles when it's wet. So it's very forgiving. If you didn't get it lined up and you check it, you can just slide it back into place. And I'm going to leave it there to dry for a little bit. Well, I should leave it here to dry, but I'm really not going to because I'm patience impaired. So I'm just going on to the next part. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the top off of this cube and turn it into a box. So right where that line is, that's my score line, that is the exact perfect place to cut it. Well, notice too, it came right off where I'd stuck it because I was way too impatient to actually give it a couple minutes to dry. Give it a couple minutes to set up before you start really handling it if you want it to stay in place. Well, I learned my lesson and I let this dry for a few minutes. Now what I'm thinking about is putting the rest of the box together, and right before I start to glue some more, I start to have a thought about, hey, that butterfly, it always likes to pop out. How am I going to get it to stay there? Well, remember that flap I cut off? That's what's going to hold it in place. So I'm going to trim the extra flap off there, and that side, which is already perfectly sized to fill in there, so it'll sort of disappear when the box is all together and nobody will notice it. But before I glue anything down, I want to make sure I've got everything just the way it should be. And so as I put the butterfly in, because red goes with red, and it's like, well, wait, no, I want it the other way because I want the red to show on the outside. So this was the brain part of my day here, was figuring out which way to flip the butterfly so that the red would show on the denim side. Once I'm sure it's where it needs to be, I'm going to trim a little bit up here just to make sure the box can still fold up around. If I get too bulky, I imagine it's going to get in my way with the fold. Of course, I am imagining that, so maybe it won't be true, but I trimmed off some anyway. And now I'm just going to come in with that glue and put that all around and slap that piece on there so that way my butterfly won't escape and it will actually stay where I want it to go. So once I get that glued on, then it's just a matter of gluing the flaps to the other side, making sure everything looks the way I want it to. Now the problem with this is, as I put these on, this glue holds really well, but after it takes a couple minutes to set up, as I learned from moving it around last time. So what I'm going to do here is I need to give it some weight to hold it together. And so I'm playing, do I want to put clips on it? Do I want to put some weight on it? And what I really decided that I wanted was some weight on it to hold it in place. So I'm going to use my tape dispenser to hold it flat while it dries for a few minutes. Well, here's what the box looks like all dry. And I also realized too that I need to do favors and things like that for some of the summer picnics that I'm doing. So this is going to be quick. It's going to be easy because I had a whole big sheet of this denim fabric made and I can get a bunch more of the boxes out of that. So I've got containers for favors. I've got it to hold utensils, all sorts of options for me. Done pretty quickly, recycling my kids' old jeans. Thank you, Eileen, for such an awesome die to play with. Well, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you'd like to see pictures of this, if you want links to anything used, it's either down below in the YouTube description or you can find it over on my blog at acolorfuljourney.com. Thanks for being a part of this colorful journey.